Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Dojo Live. Today is September 8th, Wednesday, September 8th, 2021. I'm Tulio Sirgusa, broadcasting from Southern California, and joined today by Carlos Ponte in Cuernavaca, Mexico, and Kim Lantes in Hermosillo, Mexico. And our guest, Paul Hanges with JibJab, who's joining us today. We're excited to speak with him. We're talking about innovating in a box. Now, this is an interesting topic, right? Because typically when we think of innovation, it's about thinking of things outside the box. So it should be an interesting conversation. But before we kick it off, let's get to know our guest a little bit. Paul, welcome to the show. Please tell us a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself.
Hey, thanks for having me first and foremost. My name is Paul Hanges, located here in Los Angeles, California. And really excited to talk about our experiences. I come from a non-technical background, from business development and marketing and sales. And so I'm really excited to talk about how we run the company and all the different things that we do and our experiences delivering joy to billions of people.
Awesome. So let's talk about that. The company's JibJab. What a cool name. What do you guys do?
JibJab has been deemed the online cockroach because we've been around for so long. Had our origins back in 1999. Two brothers founded the company in a New York garage. One was an investment banker. One went to art school. And they just said, hey, it's the rise of the internet and the modem. Let's deliver really fun and funny content to people directly. And that just spawned the company that it is today. A lot of people know us from This Land, which is our political satire in 2004 that named them People of the Year. But really what the company is today is an online greetings and social expression company, where we have high-end greeting cards that you can put your face into to deliver joy to people by sending and sharing them. And we've been doing that piece of the business since 2007, and now expanding on that with our newest product called Starring You Books.
All right. Well, let's get to know you guys a little bit more. Today's topic, Carlos.
Absolutely. Tulio, we're going to be speaking. The topic as chosen by our guest today is innovating in a box. So we're going to be answering the question on how to push limits while remaining true to the business mission. So Paul, let's start with the first question that I have for you today, which is, why did you choose this particular topic, and why did you feel it was relevant for today's day and age? Thank you.
Yeah. So when we think about the JibJab company, we always say that in our e-cards, you can put your face in it to personalize it. And back in 2007, 8, 9, people are like, oh, that's amazing technology. But when you say it today, they kind of go, technology? Like, what does that mean? Like, you put your face on something, I go to Snapchat, and it's an AR lens and all these different facial elements. There's deep fakes now and everything else. And we're still there with a little oversized face and a marionette jaw, because that's what we do. And there is technology behind it, but it's also core to what we do and how we deliver happiness. And I felt like I've had so many people come to me and say, let's do deep fake, or let's do this. And we're missing out on this next opportunity. And we have to look back and say, we built a very solid business that's subscription-based and direct to consumer that people love. And if we were to automatically go and try every shiny new toy, it may not be the best thing for the business. So I felt like as we have these conversations, and definitely as CEO trying to direct and know which direction we want to go as a company, keeping that at the forefront of your mind is very important, because we're bombarded with so many opportunities every single day.
Right. You mentioned the big shiny thing, and I totally get that part. Sometimes we're just compelled, right? However, I love the simplicity of, as you mentioned, the big face and the marionette jaw and all that.
Yeah.
So, and you're staying away from the complexities of, for example, deep fakes and all that. So it kind of reminds me of I remember Elf Yourself. That was one of the first applications that I saw somewhere. I thought it was really cool. It was fun. So my question to you, because of this simplicity, who's your main audience? Who have you discovered that is more receptive to this kind of very nice, very pleasing simplicity?
Yeah. So let me be clear. When we talk about putting a face on things, and not necessarily the complexity of deepfakes, I mean, that is very, very difficult, but you can work with companies to implement their technology on it. But we're not trying to replace reality. We want someone to know when you send a card, you know exactly who it is that's in there. And we give like a little funny element with the marionette jaw, as opposed to making things perfect where they're talking. Because again, we're not replacing reality. At the end of the day, we want to make things fun and funny. And having it a little bit off anatomically is part of that joy. But who's our core demo? Like at the end of the day, our core product of JibJab greeting cards is a greeting card company. We started in 2007 because we thought that there was a gap with the other large players in the space who didn't really have a lot of creativity to it or weren't pushing the boundaries. And at the end of the day, it's still the 35 to 55-year-old female as the core demographic that's going into our greeting cards. They're the ones who would typically go to Target or CVS or one of the other stores and get a paper greeting card, but now they're doing it online.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
So I want to go back to the theme a little bit because I'm curious as to what you thought, or at least the context behind it, was innovating in a box, and then the actual how to push the limits while remaining true to the business mission. What are your thoughts around innovating in a box? What were you thinking there?
Yeah. So a lot of people think like, oh, the greeting card space, it's pretty simple. You just create something and someone sends it off via email. But there's so much nuances that you can do within it. And there's so many dynamics, both inside and outside of the company, that can help shape those behaviors. And the way that we think of innovations isn't always something that you can see and feel. It may be something in the experience or the flow. You guys mentioned, Carlos, you mentioned it's so easy to create it. That is the number one value that we have within JibJab, and narrowing down all of those steps to do it. I can't tell you how many people that come to us and say, I snap a picture and I'm done and I send it. That's all I have to do. We have the technology that can place your head perfectly, set up the jaw cut for you, and you just pick a card and send it. And that didn't come overnight. It required a lot of integrations, a lot of different things to do. But we also think we differentiate from the Giphies, the Tenors, or some of these other companies, because whatever we do, you know it has high quality content behind it. And it's our investment in our art team. It's the investment in the process that even if you had 5 minutes or 30 seconds, you can send something that you know is going to make someone smile. And so there's so many intricacies behind that. That's why I feel like innovating in a box is a perfect topic to discuss, and all the different things that we're doing.
Okay, so I get it. You can think of many publishers, including one big network we know very well that used to be a lot simpler, and then they complicated and added so many more features. Sometimes more is less, right? So innovation can happen within confine of something simple yet rich. When you mentioned the thought of pushing the limits while still staying focused on the business mission, what was your thinking along those lines? How are you guys doing that as a business? What's your thought process there?
Yeah. So there's really two pieces of that. We look at it in terms of expanding into new products and how we take the core of what makes JibJab and expand it out to other categories. And then also how we advance the specific product. So I'll take both of those. I'll touch on both of those. The first is the other product side. The first is when we look at what JibJab is, we're a company that helps people deliver joy and provide utility. And utility is like kind of a weird word because you don't know what it means to everybody. It doesn't sound like it delivers joy, but anything that's a celebration, a birthday, an anniversary, the holidays, Halloween, anything that's there, that's an event that you celebrate, we want to be a part of. And when we think about our product expansion, we want to be known, and we are known as the company that allows you to put your face in it. So when we launch new categories, like our new books product called Starring You Books, it's a physical keepsake that you can be the star of the story. And you send it to someone else for their birthday. You can customize all of those different pages, but at its core, it's high quality artwork, which JibJab is known for, and you can put your face in it to personalize it as a memorable keepsake. And as we continue to expand all these different categories, that's what I mean. We're innovating in new spaces, but using the core of what people love about JibJab to really like set the tone of, when I think of JibJab, this is what I get. And we're constantly expanding. The second part of it is, how do we make our existing product that much better? Simplicity is key for onboarding. Someone comes with something intent in their mind. I want to send a birthday card. How do we make that as easy as possible? But what's the next step to that? Well, people used to go on someone's Facebook wall and write happy birthday. And we realized that part of the appeal of JibJab is also not locking people in. We're not a social network. We don't want to be a social network. We want to make it as easy as possible for someone to share happiness, no matter where they're having that conversation. So we spent a lot of time going from back in 2007, 2008, email is the #1 form of communication, and making it as easy as possible to share on email. And then when things moved to the Facebook wall, making those technological advancements to make sure you can easily share it to Facebook. And then when iOS came out with iOS 10 and allowed people to create iMessage extensions, we threw out our whole roadmap and said, how can we make it as easy as possible for people to share in text message? And that led to a whole different slew of ideas of let's reduce the content format from 1:30 to 20 seconds. Why? Well, people can then share it and consume it in their text message so they never had to leave. And we saw those kind of things, like when we think about the product, knowing we're core to allowing people to deliver fun and be funny no matter where they're having that conversation. And it led us to have all these iterations on the product to meet that core mission. When other people may be exploring other shiny objects, we stayed true to what we do, and we've cultivated a very strong, loyal following.
Yeah, like
Nice.
what I see is that you take your box with you and you explore other boxes. is more like, because you have your core mission, bring joy, let's have high quality artwork, let's make it as simple as possible, let's celebrate. And so with those cores, then how could we do that in these other fields? And I think it's great. Going back to what you said earlier about creating this energy, this space for your designers, for your quality artwork, what does that look like at JibJab? Like, I'm envisioning, in my mind, I have like this end scene of Monsters, Inc., where there's the laugh floor and everybody's having a party. Like, what do you do to inspire creativity with your team?
Yeah, the easiest way that I can answer that is I get out of their way. You notice that when I introduced myself in the company, no part of that said creative. And I know my boundaries. I'm very fortunate to have a CCO and partner in the business, Mauro Gotti, who I look at as just like a visionary in that space. And the biggest thing as my business owner is giving him the space and trusting his ability to do it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, everything we tackle, we say, is this going to make someone laugh or smile? And if the answer is no, let's not do it. So there's been tons of projects that we've started, didn't go the direction we wanted, and just scrapped. And we have to be okay with that failure and continuing to iterate. Now, he's probably the best to say, how do you continue to do that? But really, for me, it's about giving them space, knowing what I know and knowing what I don't, and then moving on.
Thank you. And my final question before I hand it off to someone else is, when it comes to art, when it comes to what you're doing, two really big things that are happening now are the need for inclusivity, as well as the danger of a cancel culture. So how do you go about including everyone and making JibJab more accessible to races, creeds, ages, women? Also, like, ride that line of not knowing if this is going to get me in trouble or not.
Yeah.
Is my question clear?
It is. And I don't know if it has a good answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because really, like, it's hard, especially when what was missing in all this, there were two founders who ran the business up until 2018. I was very fortunate to be working under them as COO for 2 years before I stepped into the CEO role. And the core of JibJab is political. We are known for this land, which was making fun of George Bush and John Kerry, and we didn't want to lose that. But part of it, when we were seeing like different things, like we said, is this too off limits? We can't do it, but that's part of our core. And so we've taken baby steps, but then also like a larger one last year with our return of the year in review, which is what we were known for many, many years there. But really what we say is like, you have to be able to poke both sides and make it fun and funny.
Yeah.
And so we try and be objective on that and make fun of everybody and make it something people want to share a laugh over. It actually got to the point that we were a part of the Facebook ad boycott in August or July of 2020. A business like ours that's D2C relies very heavily on Facebook advertising as one of our core acquisition channels. But when we started looking and thinking back, we said, the company and what people are standing for on the boycotts is probably leading to some of the ability not to push the boundaries and release content that's fun and funny and making fun of a lot of people. So we felt it was really important to be a part of that. But also, like, we continue to produce that content. We maybe take a different angle or some different liberties to ensure that there is some evenness. But we ultimately try and make it fun and funny. Like, for example, and I'll wrap this up pretty quickly, we did an Earth Day video about just put it in the blue bin, right? You think that'd be non-controversial, but we have a bunch of people on one side that says, don't normalize the use of plastic, which didn't even like come to my mind when we created it. And then people on the other side saying, I can't believe like you're saying climate change is a thing. And I'm like, we're just trying to make something pretty funny about like, put something in the blue bin or we're gonna, be mad at you. But that led us to do a go out and vote video and funniness, and then the return of our 2020 year in review, because the year of the pandemic, we had to. And that one we made fun of absolutely everything and everybody.
Go out and vote, go out and get vaccinated. I'll say it. That's Kim's opinion, not JibJab.
Look, it actually kind of reminds me of the Howard Stern days. He had very loyal listeners and also a lot of hater listeners, and they both listened. So controversy gets people to check in and listen. So you end up if you do it right, he can capitalize on that movement. Go ahead, Carlos. I think you had a question.
Oh, just a simple thing. I see that it's not just the greeting card part, because it's not just one still graphic. I see you have video as well. So as it pertains to I'm just going to add something. Video. So you have video, you have graphics, you have cartoons, you have a number of elements that are visual, that are very creative in nature. So how do you stay on? How do you keep consistency? Because you have a lot of elements. How do you keep consistency to make sure that you are, let's call it, you're pushing the limits while remaining true to the business mission in terms of the creative part of the operation? Yeah.
So the different artistic styles is very much intentional. So the majority of our greeting cards now are actually videos. It's actually, it always boggles my mind. We have over 1,500 cards in our catalog that's been built over the last 13 years or so. And people, like, when you think about a Giphy or a tenor, they're like, that's it? Like, we have millions of pieces of content. All of these pieces are highly curated. They're storyboarded. Our stop motion ones can take 2 to 3 months to create. But we do it all very intentionally. And we have these different artistic styles because we know they'll stand the test of time. If we were to only create things in 2D or only create things in a certain element, they're going to look dated when you look back 5 years from now. And when we think about some of the holidays, and I'll use Christmas because that's one of our larger holidays. When you think about Christmas movies, your favorite ones are typically the same ones every single year because you don't get burnt out from them every single year, but they're all high quality, they're nostalgic, and a lot of them are fun and evoke like really positive emotions. Mm-hmm. So when we do this, like, it could cost us $200,000, $300,000 to create a new card. But we want to do it because we know it's going to stand the test of time. And typically our most popular cards are the most popular ones year in and year out because of it. So it is very difficult, but it's also very, very intentional because we know these are going to be cards that people come back to each and every year. And we don't want to be stuck in a moment where you say, oh, that was created in 2010 because they went through their 2D phase, or that was very 2013 because it was their stop motion phase. So it's very, very intentional.
I see. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Cool.
So back to you, Tulio. Get it.
I just think, like with your political roots, I mean, the kind of stuff that must have been created back during the campaign between Trump and Biden, it must have been hilarious. I'm going to have to research some of that stuff to see what comes up.
So that was actually really interesting because that was getting on, Kim's question about what do you do? What is the environment? And that was one where we said, like, look, the environment is very, very loud right now. We don't know what we can do. So we actually did not put out a long like election video, although we haven't really done those or hadn't done those at that point for the 2012 election and other things. But we did put out some of our GIFs and things that were more neutral that could be used in either way. Because when we talk about innovating in a box in our app, you could also put your own text overlaid on top of one of the GIFs or one of the other videos. So we said, let's do something where Hillary is dancing, right? And then you can put whatever you want on it. Trump is dancing, you can put whatever you want on it. So we did take a more foundational approach, and then people can add whatever they wanted to it. But now we've started to go back into that, especially like with our last year in review of saying, hey, we shouldn't be shying away from this. Let's advance that conversation and maybe reduce some barriers by letting people share it with people on both sides of the spectrum and have a laugh.
How do you guys go about prioritizing those things? Like, how do you validate what the sentiment of the consumer is as it relates to being open to certain things versus others? I get the idea of, it's one thing putting a log in the fire when it's contained in the fireplace.
Mm-hmm.
It's another thing when the wall's on fire, right? You're not going to throw another log while the wall's on fire. So we understand that from a societal perspective, the wall was on fire. But, so how do you guys go about validating that? Do you have a way where you connect with certain consumers? You have a user group? How do you guys do that?
So with most art and creative, it's gut instinct and trusting people who've done this for a very long time. So the actual direction of some things, I again rely on my CCO to do it. Luckily, we work in a business that has ebbs and flows. We are a seasonal based businesses where we see spikes in Q4. It runs through Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day. And right now over the summer, there's not a lot of holidays. There's birthdays every single day, which is great. And I love it. But you don't see like spikes in the business like you do in December. So we strategically think like, when are different times that you can try this and see what it's like? What I've realized is that like, we use that as our testing tool, and we push the boundaries a little bit. So like for Earth Day, when things aren't as busy, we put out that video. We gauge feedback from our customer support team. We can see all the metrics on site to how many people are sending it, sharing it, creating it, but not actually sending it out, to give us a good sense of just where the sentiment is. And then that will help dictate future editorial decisions. That Earth Day one was one of the main reasons why we decided to do Year in Review 2020. Because it was shared very well. People like responded positively to it for the most part. Of course, we always get some negative feedback no matter what you post. But we look at it from that perspective and use the data on our site, and also push during our slow season.
It's interesting listening to you about the business model that you have, and I can't help but wonder how COVID in the past 15 months, 16 months, however long it's been, has impacted the traditional greeting cards business, the physical grabbing of a card, mailing of a card, versus people moving on more of a digital medium, with everything being done online with Zoom and video. Has that impacted you guys in a positive way in terms of more adoption? Overall, how's that impacted the online greeting business?
Yeah. So I can only speak for our business, but we adapted very well to COVID in the year of 2020. Our creative team pumped out more content than they ever had that was timely. And we looked at the moment and said, we need to laugh. People are still going to have birthdays and they still have to celebrate. And so we released Happy Quarantine Birthday, which has been all of last year our #1 card, and for the first half of this year, still our #1 card on the site. We did other things in terms of thank you to essential workers, and we made graduation cards for free when people couldn't have that in person. But absolutely, like when people think about digital greeting cards, they say, can it still be personable? Like there's nothing like getting a handwritten card, until you realize like all of those cards, 90% of them, you write their name on top, and you sign your name and you send it off, and you think whatever's written in the middle from that company is gonna like get the job done. And it doesn't. all the time. And so we found that, yes, there's more adoption. We think one of our differentiators, and again, people always say quotes of put your face in it as technology, but what people wanted more than anything else during the last year is to see people. And so Easter is normally an okay holiday for us, but it was the first holiday that people couldn't spend with family. So what better way than sending you and 4 of other your family members dancing in chicken dance outfits, saying Happy Easter. And we saw a massive uptick in usage and shareage of those cards. Look, we're not going to be a company that doesn't have a paywall and all of our cards are going to go viral. We are a paid subscription, and we have been since 2007. People forget that about our site. They're like, oh, you used to have a card that was free. No, we've always been a paid product, and we're very proud of the level of quality of content that we put out, and we pair it with music that we pay license rights to do. And all of that costs money, and we want to be sure that we're providing the #1 highest value to our product that people are happy and very thankful to send to friends and family. So it was a great year for us because we were able to help deliver joy to everyone else, which speaks to our core values and our core mission. So difficult time, but very happy that we could play even a little part of making some people smile.
Paul, we're approaching the final segment of today's conversation, and you touched something, your core values. So I'd like to touch on that a little bit. We might have folks out there who might be watching who, I don't know, who might want to come work for you at some point. So what is your company like in terms of what's important for you as a company, or how would you define your company culture that would probably make sure that you would reel in the best talent of the best to align it with your core mission and your company culture? What would you tell to these people?
Yeah, look, we have a slew of core values. I'm not going to run through all of them, but I'll run through a few because they're all very important. But it all starts with trust and transparency. Everything that I do within the company is that trust and transparency. People's minds, if you don't give them all the information, can run off in many multitude of ways that is so different than if you just give them all the facts. I also firmly believe that what I don't know, I don't know. I hire people to be able to, it's the old adage of like, you don't hire smart people and tell them what to do. You hire them to tell you what to do. And I try in everything I do to take that to the next level. I ultimately say these are our priorities and our goals through that trust and transparency, and say, how do we get there? We also, as one of our core values, has healthy debate. I believe good ideas come from all parts of the organization, and if you don't have your decision or your opinion chosen, you know why. Because then it'll help educate everyone on what's that next step and what can I do to refine my idea to get it something adopted into the product. So ultimately, like, it's like everyone else, you try and push down authority as far as possible. My job is considered a success if I'm bored, because it means I've removed every single roadblock from my team and they feel empowered to make those decisions. And if you're going to fail, we celebrate it and just try not to do it in the same way twice. So that's the environment we try and create. Are we always successful? No, we have flaws like everyone else. But I'm really excited about the culture we built and what we have on the roadmap of the next 2 years.
So it's embrace failure, but just make sure that it doesn't happen twice. The same thing, right?
Yeah.
that's a good way to put it. Yeah, of course.
One quick question before we wrap up here. What's your personal favorite JibJab, Paul?
Oh, man. So it's in the moment, right? So my favorite one was always Quarantinoween, because it was a really interesting time for me personally. I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. They were really super excited about Halloween this last year, and it just didn't feel right. And Quarantinoween has always stood out as one of my favorites, even though it's not very timely. Halloween's coming up now, but it's in the moment. My daughters, sadly and also endearingly, love JibJab. Every morning when they come down, they each get to make one JibJab. And for about a month straight, that was the only card that they were playing, even after Halloween. So for me personally, it's that one. But like I said, we have over 1,500. No matter which one you pick, you're going to love it and have a good time. That's what makes us us.
All right. Well, we're up
Interesting.
on time. It's been a pleasure to have you with us, Paul. Thanks for sharing your company story and the success you guys are having in the marketplace, bringing more joy into people's lives. I downloaded the app while we were talking because I intend to use it. I've got my
Perfect.
5-year-old's birthday coming up, and I'm like, I want to create a little book for her with personalized on it. That's kind of cool. That's super cool. So
Yeah.
we wish you a lot of success. Just stay with us as we go off the air. Carlos, tomorrow we have a replay. Do we know what the replay is going to be? We're not live tomorrow. We got a whole hands.
We most likely we're gonna have a rebroadcast, but I don't
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't dare to announce it because I don't know what that will
Well,
be.
we'll announce it at some
But just
point tonight or tomorrow.
stay tuned. Right, exactly.
We'll have something for you guys tomorrow at 12 o'clock Pacific, and then come back Monday for the recap show. Do we want to announce what we got coming up next week?
Sure, we got a full week. I mean, real quick. So we got Get Well Network. Then we're going to be speaking with ProQuo AI, and also we'll be featuring Gary Goldberg, the founder and CEO of Squad Locker. So that's what we have. We'll have a full week ahead. So folks, join us next week right here on Dojo Live at 12 p.m. Pacific. And remember, stay safe, everyone.
Thank you.